Tomorrow will be a historic day, one where the fate of the country could be up at stake, as the Democrats might be able to take back not just one, but two branches of government, in the fact that there's the House and the Senate races up. They could take back the entire legislative branch. Now, looking back at a specific state, my home state of Maine, for the purposes of this video today, just want to give any Mainer who's watching this some information and a guide as to, if you are a progressive, what should you do and what would I do in this scenario if you were a voter going on November 6th to the polls, your local polling station, and just going to vote and see who do you want to represent you if you are said progressive. Now, looking at the least impactful and more necessarily just the least contested race, we get to look at the Senate race, the one that everyone in Maine gets to vote for. Angus King is the incumbent. He is a so-called independent. In reality, he is just a corporate Democrat who just gets to call himself an independent, so he doesn't have to get primaried, which is quite pesky, especially since the progressives currently, our main tactic is to just primary people out of existence, like we did with Joseph Crowley back in June. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez famously made national headlines by crushing Joe Crowley in New York's 14th congressional district, but we can't really do that with Angus King. So it's quite irksome, especially since, as you can see right here, he is in the 50s, and it's a three-way race with Eric Brakey, who is a more libertarian-esque Republican. He's been endorsed by Rand Paul, and Rand Paul has been doing some campaigning events with him, even though Eric Brakey is a huge Trump supporter, which, you know, libertarian and Trump, those things don't go hand in hand. So he may just be a hypocrite and not honest. And then the final candidate that's not up here is Zach Ringelstein. He's the Democratic nominee, who's got no help from his own party because of their love for Angus King. And he is just a Bernie progressive. He doesn't take any corporate PAC money. He wants universal health care. He's an all-around good guy for progressives, but he's polling at like barely 10%. So if I were you, and said one thing to point out, especially for this race and for the House races, there's ranked choice voting for these races. Maine is going to be the first state to use ranked choice voting for official voting, and there was a bunch of fighting. We had to do two entire ballots initiatives for this, both passing with almost some contention. It was quite close the first time, and then the second time we did it in 2018, it came out to be even more of a majority. So it's going to be used for national elections, such as, I believe we're using it for non-local races, such as Senate and the House, maybe the President even. I don't know about that one specifically, but in the Maine Constitution it does say that there's one person, one vote, which you could argue in a way ranked choice voting is one person, one vote. It's just a bunch of different voting. It's a bunch of different votes that happen at different times, where each time you get one vote, but then each candidate gets eliminated. But there was a compromise that came where essentially governor races, and I'm not sure about local races, I don't think those count either. So for this one specifically, you can use ranked choice voting, so you could probably put Ringelstein at first, and then it depends. You can pick your poison here. If you want the more liberal economic leader, you could go for Angus King, but at the same time, Eric Brakey, for a Republican, he's actually quite decent. He's quite opposed to the war in Afghanistan and interventionism in general. He even supports legal marijuana, which is quite... I know Maine has it, but we really don't, as Portland's the only state to actually allow pot shops and such to pop up. It's the only place where we've got it thriving. So if you want someone who wants more, he's quite progressive in some areas, in the non-economic areas. So if you want someone like that, you could just go for Eric Brakey second or Angus King. It doesn't really matter in the end for this one. I don't like to say that elections don't matter, but Angus King, even with the uh, ranked choice. Once Ringelstein gets dropped off, roughly 80%, they've polled it, roughly 80% of the voters are going to vote for Angus King anyway, and they're second. So even if Angus King doesn't get 50% in the first one, he's definitely going to get in the second one. It's quite unfortunate because he's quite the tick of Maine that we need to kind of kick out by any means necessary. Now, the second race, this is going to be easily the juiciest one, and the no-braineriest one right here. So, this is one of the closest races in Maine right now. It's for the second district specifically, so for those who aren't in Maine, it's essentially all of Maine except the southern parts and Portland. So we have two candidates. The incumbent is Bruce Paulquin. He is just a corrupt Republican. He's when you think of a Republican and not like a Trump Republican, you think corporate-y Republicans taking a bunch of money from healthcare lobbyists, gun lobbyists, any form of lobbyists really. Bruce Paulquin, he is just the definition of corrupt, and he's running against quite the liberal, progressive candidate who supports Medicare for all. He supports living wage. He supports a Green New Deal even, and he's like 36. And Bruce Paulquin has had a tough time attacking him because Jared Golden is from the military. He left college to join in the U.S. Marines, I believe it was the Marines, that he joined just because of what happened in 9/11. He served he served a tour in Iraq and then one in Afghanistan. So he is quite a national hero. So as you can see here, Jared Golden, he's slightly up. He's slightly on the up. So if you're in Maine's 2nd District, you should definitely go vote for Jared Golden. There's another video that I've done on this channel talking about why you should vote for Jared Golden. But if you are anti-corruption, which is another thing as well, even a final point, he doesn't take money from corporate PACs, and he's still slightly winning this race. You should definitely go vote for him. Now, let's talk about this one next. This is the 1st district in Maine, which is all of southern area, the more densely populated areas, including Portland. We see this is the saddest one because this is one where that affects me. This is the incumbent Democrat, Shelley Pingree. You see, I have gone from Real Clear Politics to 538, and that's just flat out because let's do the books. Yeah, so that's because this race is so uncontested. It's not even funny. There was an attempted primary against Shelley Pingree. I believe it failed. It was pretty close, but in the end, Shelley Pingree won. When I talked about Bruce Paulquin being the corrupt Republican, the stereotypical corrupt Republican, she is a stereotypical Hillary Clinton style, even Dianne Feinstein style, corrupt Democrat. She is really no different other than social issues from Bruce Paulquin. It's quite a shame. Mark Holbrook, there's barely been any ads from him. I've only heard of one radio ad personally. He doesn't seem that important. So this race, you can do whatever you want, honestly. Shelley Pingree's going to win in the end. It's quite sad. She's up 61.5 currently, and that's just that just makes me sad. If you're a Mainer, you should probably be sad, as you know you're never going to get actual change, and you're just going to have to keep supporting the status quo in this area until we get successful primarying from her. And unlike in the 2nd district, this district is a solidly blue and liberal area, so they're going to vote for Shelley Pingree no matter what. So in the future, in 2020, just gotta keep primarying her, man. Now the final race. This may be the spiciest one. I know I called the 2nd district very spicy, but this one affects the whole state, and especially since we've had a terrible governor who's gotten less than 50% of the vote in both races, and is the reason why we have ranked choice voting for this election. And interestingly enough, this is the one where we don't have ranked choice voting. It's the governor race. We have businessman and owner of Sean Moody's Collision Center, Sean Moody, which is for auto repair, and he is running as a Republican. He's tried many times, by the way, to run, all of them failing at the primaries usually. And he's going against Janet Mills, who was our Attorney General under our last government in Maine, and she did a quite successful job, I'd say, of trying to fight LePage on all of his stupid issues legally, because LePage was quite the Trumpian Republican before Trump even became a thing. He was kind of the last remnants from the Tea Party coming from that era back in 2010. Good fun times. So we can see here, there's barely been any polling. The main polling shows that Mills is up. I wouldn't believe that. It's quite a close race, especially since this is technically a four-person race. Now, one of the independents did drop out, but the other one was roughly at 8%, and her name is Terry Hayes. She's quite the progressive. I'm just going to type her name in right now. Should have probably had this prepared. But if we go to her website, Terry Hayes, and look at the issues known as Terry's Vision here, she is quite the progressive. You see, she's committing to protecting environmental policies. She wants quality education, New Deal type of area. She wants universal health care as well. She is quite the liberal progressive sort of candidate. So if I were you, it would be a real toss-up, because personally I think that you should vote for Terry Hayes, but it all depends on whether you personally believe in the spoiler effect. I personally think it's bullshit. However, I do accept that some people will believe that the spoiler effect is there, so I could understand you voting for Janet Mills. However, she is not the best Democrat. She's definitely better than like Hillary Clinton or Shelley Pingree, but she's still not that progressive and kind of a career politician in that sort of way. So it's either Janet Mills or Terry Hayes, since you can't do ranked choice voting. But Sean Moody, he would be a lot better if he didn't link himself to the LePage and the Trump administration, because he was doing that for the whole governor race. So no matter what you do tomorrow, just remember to go out and vote. No matter if you're in Maine, Nebraska, Colorado, Alaska, any of the 50 United States, just go out and vote for whoever you believe in the end. But if you want any advice from me, vote for the most progressive candidate in your area.